Disclaimer. Please do not target, bully, threaten, or harass anyone portrayed or mentioned in this video. This is merely a commentary from the author of this channel and should be taken with reasonable doubt. Greetings! Announcing information regarding DenFur, August 20th through 22nd, 2021, and Corgi events. Please see the info below. DenFur 2021 announcement and updates. Greetings! Based on the current City of Denver guidelines, DenFur will be officially hosted August 20th through August 22nd, 2021. Per federal guidelines, the state of Colorado and the city of Denver, it was deemed that large public gatherings will be safe to host this coming August, given the projected guidelines. In conjunction, the Sheraton Denver Downtown Hotel applied for and was approved for the Denver 5-Star Certification Program that allows large venues to host events following the strict COVID-19 guidelines in place. We are contractually obligated, based on the above, to host our event. However, this is subject to change as guidelines change. You can view information about Denver's 5-star program here at https://denver.org/5-star/. In regards to DenFur registration, all paid DenFur registrations for postponed events will be automatically carried over to the new dates at the same registration level. Those who do not wish to attend DenFur 2021, we are happy to offer the ability to transfer your registration to 2022. We understand with the rapidly changing environment that some may not feel comfortable attending in-person events at the time. If you are uncomfortable attending the event, we encourage you to contact transfers@corgievents.com to move your registration to 2022. At this time, unfortunately, we cannot allow for refunds of previously registered attendees. Should this event be postponed again, any new registrations purchased after this announcement can be refunded or transferred to the 2022 DenFur event. For dealers, an email will be sent out to all current paid vendors to confirm your attendance. You will at that time be given the option to keep your tables as is or transfer to DenFur 2022. If we find enough dealers that wish to move their tables to 2022, the vendor hall will reopen for applications. If you had previously asked for a refund prior due to the date changes and would like to be readmitted back to the dealer's den, please email dealers@denfur.org and we will work to accommodate readmitting you back into the dealer's den. We appreciate your patience and understanding as we move forward into hosting events in 2021. We would like to thank everyone who has been sticking with us through this difficult time. We are looking forward to hopefully seeing everyone in the coming months. In the meantime, we encourage everyone to continue to stay safe, wear masks, and visit your local state health department websites on where you can get vaccinated. Huzzah! The following are all the COVID-19 restrictions and operations we will be putting into effect. Disclaimer. Restrictions and regulations are subject to change at any time. These will be updated as we receive new COVID-19 and social distancing guidelines. Any and all restrictions are a combination of City of Denver requirements, Sheraton Denver Downtown Hotel, and Corgi events requirements. Refusal to comply with any of the restrictions will result in ejection from the event and a hotel with no refund. If you do not wish to comply with the following regulations, do not attend. Any staff and attendees will be required to be vaccinated and provide proof of vaccination. We are working with local, state, and federal requirements on what will be necessary to prove that vaccination has been completed. Screening for staff and attendees daily with identification that they have been screened and for contact tracing purposes required by the City of Denver. Any staff and attendees are required to wear a mask in any public space at all times. This includes any space inside the hotel and outside in public areas of the hotel's property. Masks must be worn correctly over the nose and mouth. Masks must be worn under costumes and fursuits. Face shields are not acceptable alternative. Masks that require a filter that do not have a filter are not allowed. Masks and ventilation holes or patterning that allows for complete airflow will not be allowed. When eating or drinking, the mask restriction is lifted, but must be done in designated areas. Mask checks will be performed in all function spaces. A mask will be provided if needed. All spaces will be restricted to a 50% capacity or a maximum of 500 people. Social distancing of 6 feet will be maintained in all spaces. Theater-style seating will be spaced 6 feet apart. Tables allow for a 10-person capacity spaced 6 feet apart. Dancing is allowed in groups of 6 with groups 6 feet apart. Main stage front seats will be spaced 25 feet away from the stage to allow performers to not wear a mask. Exhibit tables will be 6 feet apart. Food and beverage. All items will be served by an attendant or will be prepackaged. Areas will be designated for food and beverage consumption. Signature on a participate at your own risk form alongside agreeing to COVID-19 regulations. There will be hand sanitizing stations available throughout the convention space. Hourly cleaning and hand sanitizing will be performed in all spaces and between events. Congregation in public spaces will only be allowed in designated seating areas. Staff will be provided with masks, hand sanitizer bottles with a refill station, sanitizing equipment for sanitization between equipment use. Gloves will be provided if wanted. Temperature will be checked each day. Staff rooms will be limited capacity if requested. All staff food and drinks provided from Corgi events will be prepackaged. As per DenFur's current regulations, at-risk populations and persons with a heightened risk of exposing others to COVID-19, i.e. not vaccinated, cannot attend an in-person event. Moving forward, we will be rapidly updating our website with new information, deadlines, and applications regarding dealers, panels, dance competition, DJs, artist alley, etc. We will also be updating our registration and hotel room page with adequate warning as to when both will be opening. Please be patient as we move forward as rapidly as we can. Huzzah! DenFur 2021 Convention Chair. We would like to announce that Boiler has accepted the position of Convention Chair for DenFur 2021 and beyond. We are excited to bring a local into this position. Find his announcement here. We would also like to happily announce that Corgi Events LLC as a company will be moving towards becoming a non-profit organization, or a 501c3. We are working with a lawyer to make this transition. As of right now, we do not have a specific timeline on when this will come into effect, but we are working swiftly at making this happen as soon as we are able to, and we will post updates as soon as we have them. Signed, DenFur. Important URLs and contact information. Website can be found at denfur.org. Twitter can be found at DenFurCo. Telegram announcement channel. T.me DenFur Official. Transfer to 2022. Transfers at corgievents.com.
To anyone that's worried about needing a vaccine identification, don't be. The templates are online and there's no raised stamp or embellishment to set them apart from a normal piece of paper. Print one, fill it out, laminate it for good effect, and enjoy the con.
We are aware of the post on our recent announcement in which someone is attempting to endanger others by encouraging forging vaccination cards. We have acquired their real name from reputable sources. They are formally banned from our events. Thanks for your patience.
Blacklist from all kinds, in my honest opinion.
Any convention interested in having this information can reach out to us in DMs. Anthro Northwest. Please be aware and deal with this accordingly. This lion would like to enjoy a SafeCon in November. Thank you. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Tujo Panda back in action, talking about something else today, and for once, it's going to be drama that's not related to Kier the Wolf in any capacity. So you know that Twitter is a thing, right? That platform that's basically social media condensed into a 180-character message service that you can basically talk about anything you want throughout the entire day, and some people are noted to have made hundreds upon thousands of tweets in a single day about anything and everything going on in the world around them. Usually their everyday life, but also trends and things going on, but Twitter also has a little bit of something of a dark side. That dark side being the hate mob of Twitter. Now, I'm not trying to, adulterate or maybe change your perceptions of anything that I'm about to say in this video from the get-go, but I'm just telling you all for the sake of argument and also to give you context as to why this happened. Alright, so you're also currently aware that there is an ongoing pandemic going on, unless you're maybe living in a fallout shelter or a vacuum-sealed tank. Yeah, there is a pandemic. Obviously, the COVID-19, something I commented on a couple times sporadically throughout my videos, but for the most part, yeah, the pandemic has been ongoing for over a year now. It started way back in the end of 2019, going into 2020, and it made 2020 basically the year we all stayed inside, looking eagerly out the door, just waiting for things to happen. Now, a lot of people have gotten stir crazy because of that, you know? A lot of furries especially have gotten stir crazy, and they wishfully, wantonly look out the window and hope for a furry convention to, you know, improve their moods, rejoice with friends, maybe have a cold one, and, you know, probably head to a party where they can get their rocks off, you know, having fun with whatever partner they so choose. Or at least whatever partner they can get based on their current looks, personality, charm, charisma, that sort of thing. But yeah, so you're also aware that a lot of conventions have been canceled because of the COVID-19. I mean, obviously you're not going to be holding a public event when a communicable disease is sort of just floating around. That would just be crazy. But obviously some furries have been desperate enough to try one last hurrah, like that fake MFF meet over at Chicago. Yeah, that happened, and a lot of people were angry. So, it stands to reason why these people were angry, because the COVID-19, I'm not really here to argue the politics of it. Scientists have come out, doctors have come out, politicians and government officials have come out, basically stating that the COVID-19 is a communicable disease that is dangerous to the well-being of the general public, and that is best to keep a mask on to maintain safe, social distancing, 6 feet length apart, and that you should exercise, reasonable hygienic practices like washing your hands or covering your mouth when you cough, that sort of thing. All right, that all sounds fairly reasonable. But, yeah. So, also, it's important to mind, and I do express my sincerest apologies for your loss. Everybody that has possibly lost a relative or a loved one, or perhaps you've lost a friend to the COVID-19. Now, the COVID-19 isn't as disastrous as something like Ebola or, other communicable diseases that are far more devastating to a population. However, I would say that some people in North America and, perhaps across the world in general, they have certain conditions with their body that makes them more susceptible to succumbing to the disease. In the US, obviously it's the elderly and, some aspects of like the population that perhaps have a compromised immune system, or perhaps they don't exactly have the healthiest of constitutions. I know that overweight people are at a greater risk of, succumbing to the disease than somebody, say, like me, who's just a little chubby, or maybe somebody's like a string bean. Granted, they could still die. It's just really a question of, like, the circumstances, what variant of the COVID-19 they happen to acquire at the time of, like, getting infected, incubation period, if they're keeping up with themselves and maintaining good health while they are trying to weather the storm and trying to survive the disease. All right. Obviously, you've also seen a lot of like adverse reactions by the general public. The rise of Karens, who are basically arguing with, and Karens really are the scourge of any store manager or store employee. And they have, like, there's several videos just floating around of, like, Karens going into a business and just being like, excuse me, it's my God-given right to not wear a mask, okay? If you force me to wear a mask, you're going against the Constitution of the United States government, and totally how they sound. Totally how they sound. I mean, I saw one the other day. Guaranteed, I'm not lying. Yeah, I'm bullshitting you. I've dealt with Karens in the past, and I do not really seek to be within 10 feet of them, or 20 feet for that matter. But anyway, all this to be stated that, the United States has had its fair share of strange and weird behaviors and reactions from the general public as to whether or not to wear a mask, or, follow basic guidelines for maintaining social health. All right. So, DenFur. DenFur is a convention that's actually going to be opening up, this August, 2021. I think it's somewhere to the ends of August. I don't remember the specific dates off the top of my head as of the recording of this particular segment of the video. However, I do remember it was like the 24th through the 28th, I think. Maybe the 29th. Around there. But yeah, they released a letter basically voicing their intent on opening up as a convention, and that they were, basically encouraging the furry fandom to, hey, we're going to be open. This is going to be a large public gathering, so, the respective state, like, Denver, basically they set some guidelines, public guidelines, like city officials have set guidelines basically saying that any public gatherings of exceeding this amount of people should follow these guidelines. Anyway, so the basics are probably going to be wearing a mask. Hand sanitizer will be provided throughout the entire convention center from what I read. But also, what was curious is that they're also requiring that people that are vaccinated provide what's called a vaccine report card. Now, the vaccine report card is kind of a controversial subject. It's caused a lot of people to kind of balk at it because basically it's almost like a mandate for you to get vaccinated. And I'm going to be honest with you all, I haven't been vaccinated yet. Personally, I don't really trust the vaccine. It's still fairly early on in the release of trials, although results seem to be fairly promising, and a lot of furries are glad to get the vaccine. They sort of celebrated on, Twitter, and basically are just like, hey, I got the vaccine today, woo! So good for them. But the vaccine report card is basically a government-issued piece of, documentation that's supposed to basically, state what kind of vaccine you got, when you got it, and if you are due for another one. Because supposedly you're supposed to get, 2, at most maybe 3, sessions of injectables, I guess they're different. I'm going to assume it's the same vaccine, although there could be a slightly different, version between, the first one and the second one when you get the shot. But I would imagine it's acclimating your body to the vaccine, and there have been reports of adverse effects. People that have been, receiving the vaccine, it knocks them out for, a day. They feel tired, lethargic, not really sick, just tired and lethargic, burnt out. That's the best way I can put it. It's kind of like a bad hangover, That's what they have been attesting that their body is going through after receiving the vaccine. All right, fair enough. Some people have religious reasons why they're not getting the vaccine. Other people have more paranoid, conspiracy theorist-esque, theories as to why they're not going to get the vaccine. But, the simplest thing is if you're not going to get the vaccine, you don't go to the convention. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. Well, at mention of the vaccine report card, somebody actually went out of their way to basically retweet and basically stated to whatever furries happened to be following them at the time and whatever reach that could get is that, hey, you don't need to get a real vaccine. You don't need to get a real vaccine report card. You can just print these out online and do them yourself. And number one, there's a lot of issues, with that suggestion. I really hope that this was just a bad joke on their part, but at the same time, based on, I looked at the individual's profile, I just kind of, looked at what they were saying, leading up to that point. They seem like they can be very blunt in some of their messages. They don't have a whole lot of nuance to them. They're just, blunt. If they feel like they need to say something, they're just going to say it. They're just going to come right on out and say it. Well, they certainly did, and guess what? The Twitter hate mob was angry. They grabbed their pitchforks, they grabbed their torches, they were going to go after this person, full tits, stock and barrel. But yeah, so I caught this, today. Basically, the first mention of this was fairly early on when I was still at work, but as I was getting home, I noticed that, the retweet had gained a lot of attention from the furry fandom. And, I guess I'm not arguing with the, outrage that has been shared by the outrage mob in this case, because, again, this is a matter of public health. People have died of COVID-19. It is an ongoing pandemic, and the U.S. hasn't exactly had a stellar record in combating the COVID-19 to date. It's why we've been in quarantine for so damn long. I'm not going to get into the political aspect of this. I'm not really interested in pointing fingers as to who's at risk or responsible here. I will say that the general public, really, it falls on them whether to follow the guidelines and recommendations of accredited doctors as well as government politicians and officials. like in a respective either city, state, county, what have you, depending on your geographical location. But yeah, a lot of people have not been adhering to basic guidelines, and then people wonder why the COVID-19 is still a thing, and why quarantines are still a thing, why are restaurants so closed, why are bars so closed, why is everything, ground to a halt. It's caused a lot of economic turmoil, and it shouldn't surprise you all that we might be facing this for a good many years to come. But yeah, that's where we are. All you can do is really just take a deep breath, take a shot of fuck all, and continue on with your lives. So yeah, the Twitter hate mob, comprised largely of furries, were obviously dogpiling this individual, and on one hand, like, a lot of the responses that I read were, like, just unnecessarily, just boorish and crude and very rude, but at the same time, I can understand the furor, alright? Especially if an individual has lost a family member or maybe a friend or loved one, then, their anger is somewhat justified, but at the same time, it's just, strange to me that this would happen, like, offhand right now. Also, DenFur, I'm going to just say this is probably not a move on DenFur's part to require be vaccinated and have a, vaccine report card to attest to this. It's probably something that the city recommended to DenFur as an event. And DenFur, they are a guest, well, they're considered like a guest event, like being hosted inside of whatever venue that they happen to rent for that period of time. But also, at a larger degree, they are at the mercy of the respective city or like local area in which they're going to be, hosting this sort of event. So they have a lot of sort of like rules and regulations that they have to follow to keep the public event safe, and that's the best thing for you all. So yeah, it sucks, it sucks having to like adhere to these guidelines sometimes, but at the same time, they're there for a reason. It's for basically ensuring public safety. That's the main concern of the event organizers, and they want to keep this event going for years. I was going to make a separate video about all the conventions that have basically canceled due to the COVID-19, but I'll save that for a separate video. For right now, we're going to focus squarely on this. All right. So, what the individual was suggesting is that, you just print out your own, fill it out, do whatever you want, basically fabricate as if you got the vaccine and act like it's a legitimate piece of forged documentation for you to submit upon entry to DenFur. Well, not only is that a felony, because this is supposed to be a government-issued, piece of documentation for you to submit proof of you having actually gotten the COVID-19 shot, but also it's weird that you're also encouraging other people to do this. That's not very good. If you do it yourself, that's one thing, but if you're like suddenly saying like, maybe we're all like overreacting here. Excuse me, had a lot of phlegm in my throat. I drank a glass of milk earlier, so like milk always gets like this weird coating like on the inside of my throat. Not to get too TMI here, but I'm just saying, like, I had a snack before I started recording this video. Probably a mistake. Anyway, so like going into all of this, what I wanted to say was like, yeah, like this is supposed to be a government issued like piece of documentation that's supposed to prove that you had the COVID-19 shot and that you were good to go. Like, you are, in the eyes of those that are wary, you're healthy. That's the idea anyway, that you have COVID-19 shot and that you will be protected from the COVID-19. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that probably this is not a move on DenFur, like, in particular, but this is actually to be in compliance with Colorado and Denver, law. So, like, both state and state law, but also following the guidelines set forth by the federal government. And there's been a push by the federal government to require sort of like having that sort of COVID-19 like your report card to like allow for air travel or any other areas where communicable diseases can sort of pass in the general public. I mean, this is definitely a public health issue, so it stands to reason that it's good to know who's actually vaccinated, who's at risk of catching COVID-19, and who could be a possible carrier of the disease, because let's face it, there have been a lot of cases where symptoms were kind of like they weren't known. Like there were no apparent symptoms. People could be, innocuously, going around spreading the virus unintentionally. And that's been a big concern for the furry fandom. I mean, you remember like the furore that was surrounding the whole fake MFF fur meet, like at the Rosemont Hotel up in, Chicago. Yeah. The furry fandom still feels that in spades, and I don't know, like, I have mixed feelings about the whole thing, like, as far as the response from the community. Yes, I understand that it's, an ongoing issue. You don't want to see more people have to die unnecessarily due to the negligence or the incompetence of somebody else, but at the same time, like, it feels like they're just waiting for somebody to get out of line for them to pounce on them, like, unilaterally, from all angles. This means, like, the typical cancel culture sort of mantra that you've seen time and time again. But like in this case, it was just kind of brazen to like openly suggest, hey, why don't you just go ahead and forge your own documentation? You can go to this website, the template is easily downloadable, and you can make your own, COVID-19 report card, vaccine report card. And it's like, damn, girl, like you're gonna openly advocate for people to break the law? That's making a bad situation worse because, like, from what I've heard of the COVID-19, the reason that there's, like, social distancing is, like, all it takes is a couple of close contacts, like brush-ups, or maybe even a cough or a sneeze in a generalized, localized area, and people can just get, infected over, like, a relatively short period of time. And when you're looking at fur cons, like, dude, con crud is a legitimate thing, alright? People get sick going to fur cons because people attend the convention, carrying sickness, or maybe they're getting over sickness and they're still infectious and contagious to others. Con crud is definitely a thing, and well, you know what? With the whole con crud like mantra and argument here, I would just like to say that maybe furries are the most equipped to survive the storm. Even the most least healthiest of furries out there, I would imagine that they've absorbed enough preservatives in years and years of eating TV dinners and McDonald's French fries to basically any infectious disease or sickness will probably be stopped dead in its tracks before it could infect their system. And having to wear a fursuit, they already are well acclimated to wearing a mask over their face. So check 2, they got that down pat. And being exposed to con crud has probably exposed their immune systems to years of abuse. So I would say that the furry fandom is in the best state that it's ever going to be to survive a pandemic like this. Yeah, I'm being satirical. Anyway, but no, man, think about it. Like, furries are going to be inheriting the Earth someday when the nuclear bomb goes off. They will have undergone the conditions by which a post-apocalyptic, event has occurred. They will be the true inheritors of the Earth. And then, society's just going to crumble and collapse into nothing because furries can't do anything worth a damn. But, yeah. Anyway, going back to this subject, I'll go ahead and say the person's, what I remember of their name, Fubar or something. I'm assuming that they're female. Even their profile says that they're a girl, so whatever. It's just that some of the things they have said, like I said before, they're very blunt in their delivery on certain statements and such. They're downplaying the whole, Twitter hate mob coming after her, which is, I guess, okay, whatever, but it's, let's not forget, they openly advocate for people to make their own COVID-19 vaccination, report cards. That's forging government documents, that's not good. That's actually very bad. And there was even a couple of news stories that were disseminated that basically stated, hey, listen, there are scammers out there that are trying to take advantage of the ignorant and, the gullible to basically bypass travel restrictions or anything of the sort. They want your personal information in some cases. In other cases, they just want to make a quick buck. So it really depends on the particular scammer and the angle that they're going and what kind of document they're actually going to provide you. And yes, indeed, it's probably not going to last for long, but the template is relatively easy for you to modify, but I couldn't in good faith write down something I wouldn't know what a doctor would write down or a physician or a caregiver would write down. So for the people that undertake this, it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of things that they write in the subject line, and like the information that like other people, like a government official, would actually be looking at when they try to verify whether or not you've been vaccinated or not. Anyway, Colorado State and Denver, as in the city of Denver, have set forth like guidelines as far as this event being able to take place. That leaves DenFur at the mercy of their host, the host city, the host state, and the venue that they're basically going to be opening up the event at, the hotel and convention area. So yeah, it's not like they're mandating this because they want to get a hard-on for being authoritarians. This is in the interest of public safety. So yeah, like I said before. So real quick, I just wanted to point something out. I didn't really think about this the first time that I was looking at all the screen caps in their entirety and sort of just summarizing my thoughts in this video. The people over at DenFur, they seem to know exactly who Fubar was, and basically told them that, hey, like, we know your information, we know your attendance, like, information. We're going to go ahead and forward this, make it publicly available for anybody that might want to take a look at that and bear that in mind and reflect upon it for future conventions. And DenFur basically, implied that they were in contact, like regular contact with other conventions. So Fubar, the consequences for their actions just, basically, I know, like, there are two things here. One, it could have been a shitpost, all right? Let's just put that out there. It could have been a shitpost, but at the same time, the implications of what they were suggesting are very problematic, and they probably didn't think too seriously about it when they mentioned it, but people react to things in very unpredictable ways. And in this case, it's entirely understandable to me why the community would react the way it did, because, people have died as a result of the COVID-19. And, one person in one of their other tweets, like, people didn't just, sort of back down from this. They continued to, revisit the issue, like, days after it was, the tweet had already been made and it was deleted, but, like, future tweets that Fubar was basically saying to the community at large, people would, bring it up. Even if it had nothing to do with their initial tweet, they would bring up the fact that, like, hey, getting vaccinated is a good idea too. Or somebody actually mentioned, like, a teary-eyed sort of exposition about how their grandfather had passed away due to the COVID-19, and he blamed people like Fubar. So this is sort of an emotionally charged state of being, considering that we're currently within the pandemic, all right? So I'm not really faulting anybody for getting emotional about this, but at the same time, it goes to show that a lot of people have been impacted by the COVID-19 in general, and, it stands to reason that even in playfully in jest, suggesting things like this, people are going to react adversely. But anyways, alright, so yeah, where do we go from here? Well, this is not a new thing. I only say this because I wanted to make a video talking about the closures that have occurred, the grand promises that some conventions have made, the hopes that people had that, like, conventions were going to open up again, and only to close down maybe a couple months later, or at least the announcement, I should say. So what typically goes is they will make an announcement saying, hey, X convention is going to be opening, like, at the stated date. And then when it gets closer to the stated date, what usually happens is, hey, unfortunately, due to the pandemic and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we're going to have to renege on our earlier announcement, and in the interest of public safety, close down the venue. If you're wondering why they do this, it's because that usually a venue like Anthrocon, MFF, BLFC, all these venues have contracts with the hotel or the convention center that they are intending for the convention to take place. And they are obligated to try, at the very least, to try to hold the event as per the terms of their agreement. I'm not entirely sure of the particulars of the contract, but I do know, like, generally how it works. And they have to at least make the effort to actually carry through with the event that they want to plan, because some of these agreements to mitigate costs, they are multi-year agreements. That's why you don't see MFF jumping around the state of Illinois anytime that there's a new MFF. It's usually at the same, like, convention center, which is, like, near like in Rosemont. They don't have a need to jump around and look for new venues. Not the case with somebody like Rainforest, who crashed and burned from, like, a steaming pile of like fire that could be seen from space, all because of the convention center, or I should say the hotel, basically saying, hey, no thank you, we don't want your money anymore, you are done, we are not going to host you anymore, you caused way too much in the damages, and the PR is a nightmare. So yeah, if they don't make the effort to at least try to open the venue, regardless of the COVID-19 pandemic, then their contract is null and void. So they at least make the effort and cross their fingers and hope that the COVID-19 clears up by the date of opening the convention. And as you all know, for the past year, that has not happened because it's only now DenFur is actually making the effort to make a public event. So the typical things that you would expect are basically in place. You have to practice social distancing. You have to wear a mask in all public areas. You have to, you are recommended to use hand sanitizer and practice good hygiene and things like that. So yeah, what FUBAR did was at the very least short-sighted and irresponsible. At the worst was basically endangering the public with the suggestion that people sneak into the venue with, like, you know, forged report cards. I almost call them passports. I'm just gonna go ahead and say, by the way, that the whole move under the Biden administration and federal government in basically considering taking on a mandate that would require people to have a COVID-19 like report card that basically either says that you got your COVID-19 vaccine, or, you know, in the absence of said document, that you didn't. It's caused a lot of controversy with the states, and there is a gradual state movement. Like, you know, some of the states are basically flying in the face of this and saying, hey, we don't really see that as necessary, so we're not going to do it. And we think it's, you know, infringing on the rights of the citizenry. I don't know where you stand on the subject, but me personally, I can see it both ways. Sorry to, like, offer you all a wishy-washy answer, but it's not really, I don't really see this as a political sort of thing. I see this more as a public health sort of thing, but there are individuals out there that have tried to politicize this whole thing. Granted, there are also people that have tried to say that the COVID-19 thing, it's all a myth. It's all fake. The COVID-19 is not actually happening at all. So says the conspiracy theorists and people that are convinced that the federal government's trying to make a grab on their individual rights. Thus far, I can definitely see the impact of, like, the COVID-19. The one thing that I'm going to say right now that's, like, I guess could be construed as controversial. One thing that can be viewed, like, observed empirically, is that a lot of small businesses have closed up because of all the restrictions set forth because of the COVID-19. And that has led to a sort of massive transfer of wealth from their pockets into the hands of people like Amazon, Walmart, basically the big corporations. Which, personally, I don't see that as a good thing. I think mom and pop type stores have a place in the economy and in your local community, but at the same time, can it really be the blame of the corporations for having the means and resources to ride out the storm, or the lack of planning and the bad luck that had befallen the mom and pop type shops? If you happen to have a relative that had a mom and pop type shop, my heart and condolences go out to you, but, you know, at the end of the day, we sort of have to just accept things as they are. So the Twitter hate mob, for all of its, you know, all the consequences that have derived from the Twitter hate mob, canceling people and events and things that were of interest, you know, I can't really fault them for this sort of, you know, like, overstepping of, like, overreaction to somebody's tweet. But granted, it is a felony, and it is potentially endangering them if they were to go to the event, so I can definitely see where the anger is coming from. Man, this video has, like, a little slice of everything. As somebody being an irresponsible shithead, it has, like, the Twitter hate mob doing something that I can't really support in good faith, but at the same time, I'm not really going to judge them for it either. You have basically me talking about the whole conventions and why conventions would announce, hey, we're opening in a couple months, and then it's like, oh, wait, never mind, better luck next year, bye. Yeah, it's, a lot has happened this past year, and there's a lot I could say, like, above and beyond, but the only reason I'm making this video right now is sort of a reminder that there are people out there that don't really take the whole COVID-19 thing seriously, and that there are other people that maybe take it too seriously, and then there are the people in between that take it seriously enough. I've already said before, I wear my mask. I try to listen to what like is told of me. So whenever I go into a store or restaurant, I wear my mask until it's time to eat, or I take out, or when I'm at work, I try to wear my mask anytime I'm outside of my cubicle. I try to basically adhere to the basic guidelines and principles of like what people have said you should be doing to sort of make this whole COVID-19 thing go away on its own. People have been talking a lot about herd mentality, or not herd mentality, herd immunity. It's the basic premise that once exposure has hit enough people, the COVID-19 is just going to die on its own because enough people will have acquired sort of an immunity because their immune systems have registered the disease as something that they can fight on their own, and they can survive. However, I am also curious about what the long-term effects of COVID-19 are for the survivors, because a good many people out there have had the COVID-19 and they survived. The problem is, I'm not sure if that's going to cause issues for their bodies later down the road for whatever reason. Because some diseases will lay dormant in your system for a long damn time and then come out later and wreak havoc after they've incubated for a sufficient period of time and basically take the opportunity to attack again. But yeah, not a whole lot more I can say about all this, but I will definitely be showing you more of the material as far as the Twitter screen caps that I captured. I didn't take everything, but I took a lot of the material, the back and forth between people. Basically, you can chalk it up to the peanut gallery. Again, I'm not looking down on you, if you happen to be a part of all this. I didn't censor anything because I didn't really feel the need to. This whole subject matter, most people are pretty much of the opinion that, in the interest of public health, we are going to discourage others from engaging in negative behavior that might be impacting the health and well-being of their fellow furs and fellow citizens. One thing I will say is that anytime that people do anything that is remotely controversial and it's somehow tied to a convention, like with the whole fake MFF fur meet back in December, people will immediately start clamoring for the convention or venue that the individual was somehow tied to, for the event or convention to automatically ban them, permanently. And that seems a little bit harsh, but at the same time, one way or the other, I'm just not really... I would say a temporary ban, and a stern talking to, but presumably the COVID-19 is going to be a one-time thing until the next latest and greatest disease comes back and unfolds on the general public. Let's hope not for a long time, although these things sort of go in cycles, and we've been long overdue for this, I hate to say. You can debate that with me if you'd like, but just look at history. Look at all the plagues and diseases that make COVID-19 look like an ice cream pop. So anyway, a lot of people were clamoring for them to get banned from the convention, and they were immediately... What DenFur actually said, they actually turned attention to other venues and said, hey, we will freely share this information with you all if you would like to take action against this individual. It makes sense that big conventions talk amongst each other, at least the people that run them, but at the same time, damn, that escalated fairly quickly. It was less than a couple hours. And if you're wondering, Fubar has since deleted the original tweet. I will go ahead and put that here. I will go ahead and, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to share their tweet, but enough of you probably know who I'm referring to based on the name I gave them in at the start of this video, and everything that as it unfolded. So it's not a big mystery as to who they are, but yeah, certainly embarrassing, certainly a misstep in what they were presuming to do. Again, what was that going to accomplish for the rest of us? It's hey, don't feel sad, guys. You can just take this template and fill out your own self, because there's not a stamp on it that's a government seal or anything like that, and it's not notarized. So what's the harm? No harm, no foul. And they didn't really take into account that one cough or sneeze could presumably infect a good many people in a relatively short space in a short span of time. So maybe not the best recommendation to make. Wantonly encouraging others to engage in a felony that could get you $5,000 as far as a fine goes, and some people said 10 years in jail. I actually looked into it. Like, I looked up news stories and like what the federal government stated and what the FBI stated, and yeah, some of the punishments that can be doled out for this sort of thing are fairly steep. So if you consider doing this in the near future, this is not an advocation for you to engage in criminal activity, nor is it an endorsement to do so. And I'm also trying not to be your father or your guardian. Man, if I was a father, I'd be like a 1950s dad. I'd be wearing a brown suit all the time and have a pipe in my mouth and try to say vaguely insightful things before screwing it up entirely by saying something that contradicts it entirely. But anyway, I'm not trying to be your dad here. I'm not trying to be your guardian. But at the same time, if you're going to follow their advice and forge documents from the federal government or like whatever health, like government supported like health like area that like dispenses these sorts of COVID-19 vaccine report cards, be warned. There are consequences for your actions if you are found out. Whether or not you're actually going to face $5,000, like as far as a fine goes, and face 5 to 10 years in jail, that depends entirely on if they arrest you, convict you, and you plead it out in trial. If you plead guilty, maybe they'll take a much lesser sentence. They'll give you a $1,000 fine and 1 year in jail. No, kid. I have no idea how it could play out. That really depends on your jurisdiction, what state you live in, what city you might be in, or county, and whether the federal government gets involved, because they're probably not going to get involved. It's probably going to be like state level, and you get a harsh like talking to. Anyway, whatever. So much for that, right? It's just another spate of Twitter drama that we can all sort of just marvel at and be silent observers from the sidelines, just looking at and marveling at the hypocrisy and craziness that happens on the daily. Man. But yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning because the COVID-19 thing is still going on right now, and I hope you all are keeping yourselves safe, and people have died because of the COVID-19. So, be warned. Keep yourself safe. Don't engage in illegal activity. I know that the desire to attend a furry convention and go is very attractive, especially after this long, cold, and lonely winter. But, the ends do not justify the means. You can get yourself in hot water relatively easily, and not just by engaging in criminal activity. If you happen to espouse certain problematic opinions, that's going to get you the notice of certain people out there in the furry fandom at large. And again, I'm not trying to be like an arm for them. I'm not trying to advocate for their behavior, but I'm just saying that's the reality we face right now. Kira the Wolf tried to use that as a means to dodge responsibility for his past actions, so don't be a Kira the Wolf. Just try to be an honest, genuine individual that plays by the rules, and if you break the rules, well, don't be surprised if you get punishment for it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the video here. I think that's just about all I had to say on the subject matter until I move on to something else that I just kind of happened upon. If you're wondering where I found this, it just happened, like one of my friends retweeted it, and it sort of drew my notice. I didn't really think about it until somebody else, I think it was Boozy Badger, he retweeted one of his friend's tweets that basically made them an example and said, don't be like this person, don't be that girl, be better than this. And it piqued my interest, and I looked into it, and I was just like, wow, this rabbit hole goes kind of deep. Granted, it's not anything I haven't seen before, but again, it's kind of like surprising how galvanized people are to jump unilaterally on one particular person or even a small group of people in condemning them for potentially endangering the general public. But, goes without saying, whether you feel they're justified or if you think this is a gross overreaction, like I said before, I see it both ways. Some people went above and beyond what was necessary to reprimand the individual, and some people, their statements were actually somewhat either family friendly, they were cute and funny, even if they were kind of derogatory and derivative. But yeah, some were just level-headed, and they're like, hey, please, don't do this. You're endangering people. Stop. Alright. Yeah, at the end of the day, you can sort of say they're not really encouraging criminal behavior. They're just saying you could do that, teehee. But come on, if if you're not wanting the people to engage in criminal activity, you're not going to like say, you could do this. Hink, wink, nudge, nudge. Not good. So don't do it. Alright, anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Till next time, take care and peace. I hope you all have a better one. Gonna go ahead and put on a montage for you all showcasing that whole, like, you know, back and forth with the Twitter drama. And you can sort of just make your own judgments from there. Each clip will probably be 3 to 5 seconds long. So if you really want to read it, you should probably freeze frame. Otherwise, enjoy the lighthearted music. Goodbye.